Here's an idea. Toy Story 4 isn't a kid's movie. Sure, it has all the elements. Bright colors, fun characters, comedy, fast-paced editing. But somewhere beneath the surface, a deeper, more adult message unfolds. And it starts with a spork.
Everyone, Bonnie made a friend in class.
Oh, she's already making friends.
No, she literally made a new friend. I want you to meet Forky.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi.
I love Forky. I love what he represents.
That's Tony Hale, the voice actor who played Forky.
I mean, the whole message that he kind of came into the world thinking, hey, I was made to help people eat food and go to the trash. That's it. And then Woody's the one that was like, no, you're made for more.
Tony has an award-winning history of playing lovable, comedic characters. But if we peel back the surface, we'll find layer after layer of depth to his characters, and to the art of bringing them to life. I'm Doug Frazier, and this is What We Do. I'd like you to meet 4 of Tony's characters. Gary Walsh.
Your tea's almost ready. A little Fig Newton there for you as well.
Oh, outstanding, Gary.
Buster Bluth.
Get in the back seat, I'll be right out.
Front seat, Mom. I sit in the front seat now.
Archibald.
There's a hedgehog that's been waiting very patiently for me all day.
And of course, Forky.
Trash.
Let's start with Gary. On the HBO show Veep, Gary's the special assistant and personal aide to the vice president, who's played by Julia Louis-Dreyfus. The show ended in 2019 with a total of 7 seasons, 17 Primetime Emmy Awards, a Peabody Award, and tons of other accolades. Needless to say, the show was a comedic hit. But when you're filming a television comedy, you're not always sure if a joke is working.
When you're doing comedy, you know, it's really tricky because you're doing it, but nobody can talk on a film and TV set. So it's just this, it's like a comic actor's worst nightmare of just like, you know, crickets, but it's because nobody can talk. So our ears got so tuned in that if we were doing a scene and didn't know if we heard a chuckle, like way off behind the video from the director or the writers, it was just like food to our soul. We were like, oh my God, I think it's working. And our ears had gotten so tuned in to like a laugh that happened, you know, 2 rooms down. My favorite thing on Veep was Julie and I, when we would get a scene and just to make the best of it, like the physicality, making it the funniest it can be, just all about that process. That's where I think the joy is found.
It's like a fucking Rubik's Cube. I mean, it's impossible at this point.
What, Mike? A Rubik's Cube is not impossible to solve.
I saw a Chinese kid do it in like 10 seconds.
10 seconds, Mike.
When you're in a creative rut, how do you get yourself out?
My big thing is I work with people. And the thing is, like, there's no judgment in those meetings. Someone throws out an idea and it's not met with, oh, come on, that's stupid. It's like, huh, that's interesting. Well, what about this? And you're just kind of, you're almost playing, it's like a back and forth where you can just, and then hopefully out of that, a really unique idea forms.
So you guys have created a sort of safe space for yourselves to expose those ideas that even if you're bringing them in, you're like, okay, maybe this isn't fully developed. It still has a chance.
Totally. And that's a huge thing for me. And I remember even on the set of Veep, I always really appreciated that environment because we would be doing something and there was a real acceptance of ideas. Like if somebody threw an idea out, it was never met with judgment. It was always someone would be like, hey, what about this? And even if it didn't go anywhere, it was like, oh, that's funny. I don't know. It was just, it was a real open environment. It wasn't shut down immediately. When people hoard their ideas or, I mean, obviously like entitlement or arrogance, that just kind of sucks creative energy out of a space. And when you have that kind of open environment, that at that point in time, when you throw an idea, that might not go forward. But because of that openness, when another idea comes to you and put it, that might go forward.
Once those ideas are filmed, it's the job of the editor to stitch them together into the final product. As an actor and creator, Tony is a sponge. He wants to learn about the different steps of production, not only out of curiosity, but also because it helps him improve his craft.
I think editors are really the unsung heroes when it comes to comedy because the editors have to have as good of comic timing as the actors many times, because they're the ones that are cutting back and forth between people. And if the timing's not right, the joke's not going to work. And I tell you that the editors of Veep, the editors of Arrested Development were incredible.
On Arrested Development, Tony plays Buster Bluth, a 30-something, socially awkward character who still lives with his mother and wouldn't have it any other way.
You do not belong here. My mother's been spoken for. You know, I may never have played organized sports, but I am a man. And I'm afraid I'm gonna have to ask you to leave.
If you haven't seen it, Arrested Development is a TV comedy with a cult following. The show is known for its myriad of hidden gags, some of which the actors themselves still don't know about. Watching any sort of behind the scenes on any show or film, you get to see, like you said, all these unsung heroes. From like sound designers are another big thing that,
oh my gosh,
it's
everything.
Insane.
Everything. And it's also the detail of, I'll never forget on Arrested Development, the art direction. You know, there were jokes all around us that we had no clue of, that Mitch Hurwitz, who created the show, probably didn't even know about. Like, there would be one of my favorite jokes of Arrested was when David Cross Tobias joined the Blue Man Group thinking it was a support group for depressed men. and during, you know, many scenes, there was like these blue handprints on the wall just randomly, or just like notes left and all this kind of stuff. And that's art direction. I mean, I'm sure Mitch did, you know, request a lot of it, but many times these art directors just knew the story so well, and props and everything, and the prop masters, and they would put this stuff up because they just knew the story so well. And that's all them. That's all behind the scenes.
It must feel pretty cool to then go back and see those moments and you're like, shit, I was part of this thing and I had no idea how much bigger it actually was.
Yeah. It's also really embarrassing because I was doing this podcast, I guess 2 years ago at the Sketchfest in San Francisco 2 years ago. And somebody was asking about Arrested, and they were saying how one of their favorite jokes was when Buster was put in the hospital because his hand was eaten off by a seal, and the doctor comes out and the mother says, "How is Buster doing?" And I explained the joke as how the doctor said he's going to be okay, but his hand has been eaten off. And somebody in the audience raised their hand and said, no, that's not how the joke was. The doctor said he's going to be all right. And what he said is he only has a right hand. Oh. His left hand has been eaten off. That's why he said he's all right, because he only has a right hand. And it's like, by the way, that was like 13 years after I shot the show and never got that joke. You know, so that's how dense and brilliant that writing was, that I still to this day, there's so many jokes I don't get.
Are you the Bluths?
Dr. Wordsmith, how's my son?
He's going to be all right.
Oh,
thank God.
Finally, some good news.
There's
from
no
this
other way
guy.
to take that.
Buster is a fan favorite, but Tony has played many other characters. In 2019, he brought to life a chicken by the name of Archibald.
Come quick! Oh, the bandits disappeared down this hole with my purse. I'd go after it, but I'm not feeling very heroic. Would you do it for a cookie? I don't think so. How about a supportive hug? No, thanks. Just get in the hole!
Archibald is the star of the Netflix animated series Archibald's Next Big Thing, which is based on a kid's picture book that Tony wrote. In both the book and the show, Archibald is a positive-minded chicken always on the hunt for, well, the next big thing. The title offers a promise of fun and adventure, as well as a difficult life lesson. Archibald, like so many of us, including Tony, can get wrapped up in what's known as conditional happiness. The joy we feel becomes dependent on something external to us happening or being a certain way. I'll be happy when I get a better job, you may say. The danger is that once we obtain the thing we thought would make us happy, we find it's not enough. And like Archibald, we're on to the next big thing, again and again.
This Archibald's Next Big Thing came out of my own journey, because when I booked Arrested Development years ago, it was getting a sitcom was my dream. It was my everything. And my whole time in New York when I was there, whatever I was going through, I was like, you know what? That big thing is coming. That big thing is coming. And when I booked Arrested, I got my big thing, and it didn't satisfy me the way I thought it was going to satisfy me. And it really scared me. And it really woke me up to, I had not been present for most of my life. I had not found that kind of joy in the everyday. I was always looking ahead. And the thing is, if you're not practicing contentment where you are, you're not going to be content when you get what you want. And I was always looking at my next thing, and I was missing where I was. You have to find parts of that character in yourself to kind of try to make it authentic.
Tony has been public about his personal struggle with anxiety. He channeled that struggle to bring authenticity to a spork with googly eyes named
Forky. Forky. I am not a toy. I'm a spork. Be quiet. I was made for soup, salad, maybe chili, and then the trash. I'm litter. Freedom!
And honestly, up until the movie came out, in my head, I was like, oh, I'm going to be replaced. I'm going to be replaced. I mean, this is because I heard so many stories of actors, getting replaced. And I was like, yeah, this is going to happen. Don't get too comfortable.
But his anxiousness about being replaced never came true. His portrayal of a character having an identity crisis brought light to the film's theme of duality. The idea that opposite impulses or desires can be a part of the same character. For Bo Peep, it's her fight between escaping her past and her love for the old cowboy from her former life. For Woody, it's his struggle between his duty to Bonnie and his love for Bo. And for Forky, well, it all boils down to his name. If he's a spork, then why isn't he named Sporky? It's a metaphor for his identity crisis. After all, if his name was Sporky, then he'd know who he was. Instead, the name Forky represents one part of a more complex character, divided between his impulse to remain how others have defined him and his desire to change into something more. In the process of changing himself, he also helped change those around him.
I don't know if you remember, in the movie, there was this character named Gabby, who Christina Hendricks played beautifully. And she was a little doll in a thrift shop. And at first, she's kind of seen as this very dark, creepy doll. And you're kind of in your head thinking, oh, yeah, that's going to be the villain. Everybody's going to hate this doll. And since Forky knows nothing about the world, he came in, he approached her and was like, hey, I'd like to brush your hair. You got nice hair. And just didn't kind of have this perception of her that everybody else did. And because of that, because Forky had that kind of openness to her, you started to understand her brokenness and her kind of suffering. And in the end, she's kind of has this redemption where she is she's lonely and needs someone to be with her. And that was because of Forky not having not judging a book by its cover kind of mindset.
Okay, in the same way that we interact with people, and like you said, you judge a book by its cover, having that innocence of a child allows us to more quickly get to the truth of who each of us are, versus who we want people to think we are.
Yeah, and I never thought about that, but that's so true, because Forky really was like a small child. Like, you think of a baby or a little one will go up to anybody and just smile and see them as just a human being. And Forky really had that kind of openness to people. I love that. I mean, I wish that more for myself and for everybody.
Though characters like Forky, Buster, Archibald, and Gary make us laugh, they can also be a vehicle for us to accept difficult truths or to find comfort in the gray areas of life. One thing's for sure, wherever there's a layered comedic character role to fill, inspiring actors like Tony will be there to give them a voice. Hey guys, thanks so much for listening. Would you mind leaving a rating and review for the show? It only takes a moment and it's a huge help. And be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any new episodes. Until next time, stay curious. What We Do is produced by me, Doug Frazier, for WHRO Public Media.